Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Pints Politics. Let's give a big round of applause to your moderator for tonight, Zack Kucharski.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. Happy Juneteenth. Thank you, Lachelle, and thank you all for being here. We have a great show tonight, and I'm excited, but I have a few thank yous that I have to start out of the gate. First, thanks to the Olympic for the venue. We love this space. We were just talking about that. The beauty of watching folks exercise and have discussions all around the space. It's just fantastic. You can tell I don't exercise. I'd also like to thank supporting sponsor Star Entertainment for their help here. And I want to thank our presenting sponsor, the Cedar Rapids Area Association of Realtors. Kevin Plotz is here to say a few words. Kevin?
I'll keep it brief. I did not exercise either over there today, so thank you. So we're very proud to sponsor these events this evening. The Cedar Rapids Area Association of Realtors is proud to sponsor with this for the Gazette and Pints and Politics. We choose to be involved in events like this because politics and real estate are intrinsically connected, and the influence of politics and the real estate market is profound, and it's far-reaching. So examples of regulations, zoning laws, taxation policies, interest rates, economic policies, all of those things come into play in the real estate market. So very happy to be here. Very happy to partner with the Gazette, and thank you guys all for coming today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you to the Cedar Rapids Association. All right, everyone. I am going to get on my seat here. Our guest tonight doesn't probably need an introduction, but I'm going to give him a short one anyway. Mike Draper has gone from a guy with a history degree at UPenn who needed to figure out what to do when his fellowship didn't happen, to a guy that now has 10 stores around the Midwest connecting key events and cultural movements, and you're celebrating 20 years in business. And so Iowans look to you in a lot of ways to interpret and react to the major happenings. Your Cedar Rapids store is a short zip line, if there was one, away from here. But Mike Draper, welcome to the stage.
Yeah, thank you.
So appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight. And, your company's celebrating its 20th year, and I'm guessing when you look back, there were moments that maybe wasn't always smooth sailing. But does it seem real when you look at, I mean, you're opening a new store this fall, you're in multiple states. Does this seem real?
No. Yeah, I didn't really know what to expect when I started the store. So my dad is an attorney. My mom's a mechanical engineer. Both my grandpas were mechanical engineers on my mom and my dad's side. 5 of my uncles are mechanical engineers. My mom's family actually holds the record for most mechanical engineers from one family at the University of Michigan. There's another family that has most engineers, but they were all sprinkled around like electrical systems, that type of thing. And so running t-shirts was not, I think, in my dreams as a kid. I wasn't like a second grader being like, when I grow up, I want to sell t-shirts. I think a teacher should have then intervened at some point and been like, I think you could probably dream bigger than that, buddy. Astronaut, fire. No, I'm going to do t-shirts. And so I never expected to do this. I didn't know what it would lead to. Every year essentially goes just well enough for us to keep doing it another year. And it's still the best of all available options. I mean, it's just me and the bank. There's no board of investors. There's no board in general. There's no investors behind pulling the strings. So it's just what I can leverage. And there's obviously risk in that. On our About Us page, we talk about the first time that we almost ran out of money, but that was one of 4 probably. And every time you almost run out of money, you're like, God, why do I do this? Like, I should just get a regular job. But I'm not qualified for anything because I only have a history degree.
Is there a shirt that you look back to along the way that, as you were running out of money, that it was like, oh, I better come up with a winner here? Or what bailed you out?
Think, Draper, think. Make something that people are going to buy. You remember lots of stuff. You realize how important it is to just be engaged with like the community. I mean, you never know what's going to impact people at different times. And so when I was in college once, I played in a couple bands. And I played one time at a show and like nobody applauded. It was pain. I mean, to the point where after the first song, I thought, oh my God, I've got to stand up here for 30 more minutes. And I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then I think a week later, somebody came up to me at a party and she was like, oh my God, you played at Aikman's, didn't you? And I was like, yeah, I did. And she's like, I loved it. And you're kind of like, where were you sitting? But that one compliment made me like keep doing it. And so there's been lots and lots of moments, but they're not really connected to anything tangible. It was some days where you're like feeling down and somebody comes in and like either buys something or compliments you. And just that kind of keeps you going. And I've tried to keep that in mind, which is why I regularly email people unprompted to be like, you're doing a great job. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, like organizations, anybody, because you realize most of these people will only hear information when it's people crapping on them. And for somebody to just unprompted, like, I don't need anything from you, but I just want to let you know what you do is fantastic. And if you've ever been in that situation and somebody kind of throws you a lifeline, you know how outsized importance it is. It doesn't take money. It doesn't even take much time. I mean, it's 2-3 minutes tops. So you don't even have to buy a stamp anymore. If you mailed it, that would cost you like upwards of 70 cents now. It's pretty ridiculous.
I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about what a brainstorming session looks like? I mean, do you get together to think of ideas? How does that process of creativity work at RAYGUN? I mean, are you just waiting for other steps? I mean, is it happening on social media? Where's it happening?
Yeah, we oftentimes wish it was more organized. But so to kind of give you an idea of the company, there's 10 locations. I still work out of the Des Moines location, only because I like being in a store watching people shop, because it makes no practical sense for my desk to still be in a physical store. There's a production facility on the south side of downtown, and then we have 10 stores, so 6 in Iowa, Chicago, KC, Omaha, Lincoln, and we're all connected through Slack. And so we essentially, you just take ideas as they come. So people will suggest ideas off Slack. And I mean, our designs, you could design 70% of our stuff in Microsoft Word. So we're not really pushing the boundaries of like art.
Yeah.
It's like all pretty simple. So the graphic designers are mainly like air traffic controllers. What designs become a shirt versus what designs become social media. And it's a lot of casual chit chat and then urgency because we haven't put anything out. And then we like really hustle our work. And so we could finish it in like 30 minutes, but it usually takes us 5 hours. We, just coincidentally, because it's topical, the other morning, a friend of mine sent me a video and it was from like a Joni Ernst town hall. And it just said, check this out. And it was like Joni Ernst clip. And she's like, well, we all are going to die. And you're just like, then it's like a 5-alarm fire. You're like, stop what you're doing. Yes, we got one. Like this, like do this right now. And we put that shirt out. Within the hour. And that kind of goes to what we look for. So there's several things in terms of how we rank them. So when we design a shirt, the important thing is you want to be direct, simple, easy to read. Like it used to be that people would look at giant art, or I remember when web design like hit a pinnacle and you were designing on these 24-inch monitors and you could make this really badass website. And that was around the time that everybody just started looking at websites on this. And you're like, oh man, it's a 2-inch screen. So once we hit the pinnacle of awesome web design, everyone started looking at photos on these tiny things. And so we want stuff that is easy to read, high contrast, because most people are seeing our stuff on a 2-inch screen and they'll take a picture of themselves. And so we go for simple, high contrast, direct. There also has to be a sense of mystery to it though. So you want to be simple and direct, but you don't want everybody to really get it. People find stuff appealing that they know about, but in the back of their minds, they know other people don't really know about. So it's either a place they've been to. So that's why you buy like a college shirt. If you went to that college to broadcast, I went here, a park shirt, a city shirt. And with our stuff, you don't really want to explain the whole thing. So the Iowa, we all are going to die is obviously the old fields of opportunity thing. So it looks, but even if you don't know that, it looks like a slogan for the state. But then it says like, we all are going to die. So if you get close to it, it from a distance, it looks like a general tourist shirt, but then you look at it and it's like, what in the hell? Kind of makes Iowa seem badass. And the third thing, we know we've really knocked it out of the park. If we have a shirt that if you found it in Salvation Army in 30 years, a 19-year-old would be like, I want this. I have no idea who Joni Ernst is. I don't even know what Iowa is because the United States of America no longer, it's all Canada. But I want this shirt. They're at the Canadian Salvation Army in southern Manitoba. We've been renamed Quebec South.
I'm curious, I think there are a few models wearing your We're All Gonna
Yeah, I
Die
know.
shirt. So I'm curious, are there some home runs that stand out? What's the holy grail at RAYGUN of slogans that were those, people got it, they're the top seller?
Yeah, it really started coming together when we did. I mean, one of my favorites is like the Midwest map, and it's the Midwest drawn by people who don't live here. So, like Iowa is obviously Idaho, and then Ohio is like Iowa, and then Wisconsin is cheese,
Yep.
and Minnesota is snow, and then it's like Kansas, or is this one Kansas? It's like this one might be Kansas, and that kind of grew out of our book, The Midwest God's Gift to Planet Earth. And that kind of grew out of us totally failing when we created a line of jeans, which nobody remembers, which is part of the problem.
They three-legged variety?
No, they were regular jeans. The jeans were actually pretty good. But we viewed ourselves as like a clothing store. And so a guy who had like a master's degree and worked there and he did fashion design was like, well, we're a clothing store that prints t-shirts. We should make jeans. So we made these jeans. And we spent a bunch of money on them, and then they weren't turning over as fast, which these are all business terms that I've kind of learned. It's like a crash course. So there's inventory turnover, which I learned when it's turning slowly is a real problem. I mean, it's like catastrophic. And so we weren't turning over inventory as fast. And you're like, oh my God, I just realized like we're not like a clothing store. We're just a content store. Like people buy content from us. It just happens to be on t-shirts. And so then we decided that one huge idea, the jeans, was so bad that we should fix it with another huge idea, which was an entire book called The Midwest God's Gift to Planet Earth. But that led to like the Midwest map was in that book. Midwest forecast was in that book. We just started cranking out content and then putting it on anything you could put content on. So people are like, what do you print on? We're like, anything that can hold words. If it can hold words, we'll find a way to print on it. And that I think is kind of was like the real turning point for the company, which is wild because I think that was like 2012. So I'd been working on the company for 7 years before I figured out what we actually did. It's just kind of bad. Bizarrely depressing when you're like, God, how little I knew about the company, and I've been working there 7 years. I would have fired myself.
I'm kind of curious. So you've got stores in 4, soon to be 5 states. Vastly different political systems, a little bit different on the culture, what people find funny. How the hell do you get into tune with that relevance? I mean, how early do you get in the market to understand? How do you make it relatable to each place?
Yeah, I guess this is a plug for news, but I literally subscribe to like 24 news publications. So our, the bookmark tab, yeah, the Gazette's one of them. And so our bookmark tab is just every like city newspaper around us. And so we'll scroll those each morning. So you kind of have, in general, like a finger on the pulse. But then once you're kind of up and running, people will feed like the machine. So like I said, with Joni Ernst, somebody sent us that video right around the time it was uploaded to the internet. So they were kind of like their first thought was, I'll send it to this guy. So now it's handy because people in other cities and other states just start sending us information. And so you're just kind of so bizarrely plugged in. I mean, the job, I don't really see a lot of people outside of work because by the end of the day, I'm like so exhausted from consuming information. And it's everything. It's like politics, pop culture, sports. I never thought I would know so much about Creighton's volleyball team. It's like, but I'm on an email thread with the athletic director at Creighton about who like the new starters and stuff are. Cause we have like sports department doing NIL and.
Well, there's a whole, group of folks, we call them news avoiders right now. So how do you keep yourself positive I mean, they're struggling to read one news source. How do you keep yourself positive reading all of that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in general, I think an entrepreneur kind of like fluctuates between anything is possible, like we can all do it, to this is the start of the death spiral, we should all surrender. And so I'm, like anybody else, will kind of fluctuate. But I prefer to be an optimist because at least there's a chance that it'll turn out well. I mean, if you're a pessimist, it's kind of like 100% chance. And nobody buys things from sad people. So whenever anybody says like, oh, just be yourself, it's like, oh, that's terrible advice, because yourself is sad sometimes and people don't buy things from sad sacks and you got to pay like bills with money. So just put a smile on your face and get out and sell things.
I'm curious, some of your shirts maybe hit a few folks close to home. You're in Des Moines in the East Village. I mean, have you had any awkward encounters with folks that, they know who you are, you've made a shirt about them, and you have to interact in public?
Yes. At this point, the list is long and distinguished. There are like two funny ones. I guess one, when Branstad was still governor, simpler times. It's like the Branstad years.
Opportunities.
And we still had a great sign. He was hosting the like national group of governors. We're all going to come to Des Moines, and so it was Branstad's charge, so he was going to host it. And so a consulting company was in charge of putting the party together, and somebody, like our name came up, and somebody emailed us and they said, oh, do you want to do product for all the governors? Like you can outfit everything. And we said, yeah, sure. Like, by the way, I've said some like really mean things about the governor, though. I just want to let you, I don't know who you are, but I don't want you getting fired. And they said, oh yeah, no, we know that. Like Terry's wife suggested we work with you. And you're like, oh, damn. What is going on at home? It's like the brand. His wife was in charge. And he was like, you know what company I want to do? Well, it's like, I want that company. But one more awkward one was Kim Reynolds one time had to give me an award, which was, it was like a corporate environmental thing. I can't remember what group it was, but they said, oh, just come to the Capitol. The ceremony's going to be there. And it wasn't supposed to be Kim Reynolds giving out the awards. It was me and maybe 5 other people. It was going to be the organization. And then I guess like Kim didn't have anything going on. And so she
checked the details of the
yeah, I know. So she decided to hand the awards out and I was like, oh God. And the people who had like nominated me for the award, they were like, oh. And so there's this incredibly awkward photo of us looking at each other. Like normally politicians are really good at just being like, but when she saw me next in line, it was kind of like, but then she went back to smiling and it's the two of us. So that was, particularly memorable.
Is that photo on your desk?
No, I was like, no, I don't know where that photo is.
I'm curious, you do a lot of work for causes throughout the year. What drives, your company's kind of working with the community, the decision to help other groups? I mean, that block text is pretty recognizable and you see it a lot of times for a lot of different causes and groups. Why is that important to you?
I mean, we work with lots of groups kind of naturally. So it's not like pink washing the company. We work with organizations that we actually, support in some way. So I'm on like the boards of some groups. For example, we worked with Planned Parenthood. One of our first events with Planned Parenthood was actually a year when I think Susan G. Komen pulled their like support for Planned Parenthood. And then it was kind of this like lots of corporations were pulling support for Planned Parenthood back in 2015. And my wife had been a nurse for Planned Parenthood, and you're kind of like, well, this is ridiculous. I mean, it's the equivalent of like a dental facility. It's just healthcare. And so we decided to host a fundraiser for Planned Parenthood, and we were like the largest company in Iowa to do a public fundraiser for Planned Parenthood. And at the time, we were like a $2 million company, which was more just proof that nobody wanted to step up and support. And so I think I'm attracted to organizations where we can actually move the needle. We don't do anything with like leukemia and lymphoma or the American Cancer Association. I'm not pro-cancer or pro-leukemia or even pro-lymphoma. But it's just, we would be so small, we're not going to make a difference. Whereas something like the Abortion Access Fund, will be their biggest fundraiser of the year. I mean, you're really moving the needle. And For the people for whom Planned Parenthood doesn't give enough to abortion, you're in luck. And that is something that it's like sad to say, but it's, physically dangerous to support organizations like that. But it's kind of one of those, you're not going to be, I didn't start the company to take orders from other people, like either bosses or the general public. And our main rule is, well, if we support the organization, if they're a good organization and we like it, then we should kind of like put our money where our mouth is and like actually vocally support them. And sometimes it's less about the money as it is about just standing up and actually telling them, I appreciate what you do for the community. So yeah, if there's a chance that we will get, if there will be a boycott petition against us for the organization, we're on the right track.
How do you decide that line? I mean, you've got a business where, you got to throw some punches where that line is. Do you ever hold back, or, do you like?
Well, we never want to be mean, so you don't want to punch down. You don't want to bully people. In general, you want to think about what ground you're standing on. And if you're trying to make a point from a positive, we're not going to go around and trash other people's artwork. We don't want to use opinions or things like that. But if it's somebody who's in a position of power, or if it's in jest, I don't know. In general, you want to stay away from meanness and just for the sake of meanness. So I don't think we've ever come across as that way, which is why it's appealing. It's funny, but it's not meant to be cruel. There may be people who disagree with us, but we're not. It's yeah, you're happy to, you're fine disagreeing with us. But yeah, I don't know. I probably maybe should think about things like that more as I get older. It's wait a minute, am I putting the company at risk? But I don't know. It's fun to do. It's fun when people always ask us, how do you stay in business offending 50% of the population? And we're honestly, we'll have people in MAGA hats that will come in and buy. It is, Busch Light, ranch dressing, and tailgating meets uteri. So it's a wide spectrum of visuals. And uteri is the plural for uteruses. That's how much we use that word. Somebody once stopped me and they're like, what's a uteri? I'm like, oh, it's when you have several uteruses together, they become a uteri. It's like a pod. You learn a lot from the store. But I think when people walk in, even if they disagree with some of the opinions, in the back of their mind, they know, oh, this isn't Target. This isn't a publicly traded corporation. This isn't a board. This company does whatever they want. They actually have freedom. And I think that's kind of the appeal that some, the only thing that would equate us to politics, that's for some reason, that's the appeal of some politicians, is that they'll say, I don't even want to do this. It's I never wanted to be a politician. And that goes back hundreds of years. There is this appeal of somebody appearing to not care what other people think about him. I think it was David Byrne from the Talking Heads who said, coolness is the essence of not wanting. So, which is, bizarre for us, because obviously we want people to shop at the store. We are desperately need money all the time. It seems like every month, the first of every month, we need more money. And then the middle of the month too. And then sometimes in between, every week. And so, but I think when you just kind of project this, we do this because we want to do this, and this is what we like, people respond well to that no matter what side of the aisle they're on. So
you have your "we're all going to die" moment, that Friday morning a few weeks ago. How many ideas do you come up with? Was that just it's this one, or are there 6 or 7 contenders, and how do you decide?
Yeah, I mean that one probably produced nearly 100 ideas. I mean, we had one that what I thought was funny that we never made, which was Iowa. We're going to need a bigger cemetery.
And I just the reaction, I think.
I just thought, but I think we made 6 shirts, and there were a bunch of memes and a video. And so, but with one like that, there are so many things on the cutting room floor that you're like, oh, that is funny. Yeah, that's funny. And it's funny to sometimes look through our old files of the stuff that we didn't pick. And you're like, oh my God, we didn't pick that one. That's actually kind of funny, which is kind of nice as you get further away from it. When you're inside of it, the joke isn't new. I mean, by the time it gets made, we've already told the joke to ourselves so many times that you're like, does this even is this funny at all? Like, what are all these? And then the words look straight. You're like, is that how you spell die? And so it's funny to be surprised by stuff that you made years ago and you like laugh at it if it's the first time you see it and you're like, oh yeah, no, this stuff is actually kind of appealing. I can see why people come here.
Have you had one where you thought it'd be a home run and folks snubbed you?
Yes. I mean, well, it's hard for us. We've never had one that we thought was going to be amazing that nobody liked, but there's lots of them that we're like, oh, we think this is going to be good. And then it doesn't really go anywhere. People will come through the store and they're like, everything in the store is funny. How do you do that? We're like, we stop selling the stuff that's not funny. It's like, it's kind of like a stand-up comedian. You don't tell a joke that nobody's laughing at. You just, even if you're like, this is the best joke, it makes so much sense. If you tell it and you get no response, you're like, yeah, I'm throwing that. Like, there's no stand-up comedian who's doing jokes just for art. Like, it's all response. And the store is the same way. We just want response from stuff. The most surprising one was one of our designers, John Bosley, who has he has a store now in Valley Junction. He one time was like, we should do a shirt that's Iowa, 75% vowels, 100% awesome. And I was like, I guess so. And then it, like, people bought so many of them. You want to be like, that was my idea. But it's impossible to know what's going to go well. It takes like a group of us, and there's so many ideas pinging around. Like, people don't believe me when I say it, but there can be a shirt that we release on a Thursday that we came up with just a few days before. And we literally can't remember exactly how we came up with it. Like, one person changes one word and somebody else does something. And so it makes for kind of a fun group environment. You realize what like a team effort it is. You know, people will say like, oh, and it's why, like, it's just you. And you're like, yeah, it's just me. And they're like, oh, you're like a self-made guy. Like, yeah, kind of. I mean, I grew up in Van Meter. You're in this like upper middle class family. So it's like, oh boy, of like supportive community. It would be the most boring memoir of all time because all my teachers were like, you're going to do great. There was no like, you can't do it. Nobody was trying to stop me. My parents were supportive of it. A friend of mine in college suggested that we start selling t-shirts. So it was like his idea initially to start the whole thing. Then he went out and worked at Citibank. And then when I moved back to Van Meter,
you're probably happier.
Yeah. People were like, oh, does he regret not being in the company? It's like, he's doing fine. It's like, don't worry. It's like Citibank still pays pretty well. He's got a pool. We're like still friends. My kids have swam in his pool. Lives in Austin. It's like a really nice pool too. I mean, he's done. My kids are like, you should have stuck with him. It's like, shut up. And, you know, then moved back to Van Meter. A friend of mine from high school, his dad had a screen printing shop. So he taught me how to screen print, you know, lived with my parents for free for a while. My bunk beds were just the way I left them. Like, my Rage Against the Machine posters were on the wall. So my mom knew that I knew that one day I'd be back and I'd like things just the way I left them. So I think she really knew me. And then started the store. And on the one hand, you're like, yeah, it was just me when I started it. But even to get to that point took so many people, and you're so reliant on the community. And even now, it's just such a group effort. It's kind of hard to put into words. And when I think there's this reliance on, you know, entrepreneurial versus non, you realize you're just one piece of like this large organization, and it's impossible for the organization to exist without you, but you didn't do it without this person. And even when the organization is here, it takes so many other people. And I think people often, you know, from societal, political, everything, just really overemphasize how much they're doing and less about how much other people are doing from them. And it's one reason why I still like to have my desk in the store, because the store is how we make most of our money. And it's this really demonstrative example of, oh, that person working the register is not me. There have to be other people here to like collect the money that then pays me. And you really see the cycle of everything when you're in the space. And it just blows my mind how many other people have done so much things for me. And then I get invited to talk to everybody. I got it. Best of both worlds.
You know, if you ever get a day off and you're looking for, you know, maybe a job shadow, I think it'd be amazing to have you come in and maybe do some headline writing. And see what you come up with for a day.
Oh, yeah. Like all caps. Yep.
because I mean,
Exclamation points everywhere.
you
People
do
are
a
like, tone
lot,
it down.
you do a lot with a few words, and that's people don't realize how hard that can be.
Oh, it's really hard. I mean, it's wild when we sit down with other people and we're like, all right, what are your ideas? And to hear some of their initial ideas, you're like, well, these are so bad. And we're like, we're actually pretty good at this. It is really tough to distill a complex thought down into just like a few words. So I've always been telling the Democratic Party to focus. It's like t-shirt first, people. Come on now. Like if you can make it work on a t-shirt, it'll work on everything else.
So last question, and we're going to have our panel come up. So guys, if you want to start heading this way, we're going to play a game, and I'd love to have you stick around for that. But
Oh yeah.
what's next at RAYGUN?
You mean like long term in the future, or
Yeah, what's
it's like
world
what are we?
domination, or are you
Yeah.
stopping somewhere short of that?
We think, yeah, we think in like 2 week increments. So it's like that movie, The Money Pit, where like anything's possible in 2 weeks. So we would like to continue to keep like growing. The goal is essentially to be, this is like may sound like ridiculous, but we kind of want to do for stores what like The Daily Show did for late night comedy, where it took something that already existed and kind of changed the format into something that wouldn't have made sense. Like if it was 1995 and you said, I get all my like news from late night comedians, it would have been like from Jay Leno and Dave Letterman is where you get your news. That's ridiculous. But fast forward 10 years, and if you said, I got all my news from late night comedians, not only would that make sense with Jon Stewart, but when the Annenberg School did a study of like news facts, they found that people who got most of their news from The Daily Show actually tested better than people who got their news from every other 24-hour news network.
That makes me feel great.
It's like now that I say that out loud to you, it sounds kind of insulting. So anyway, my goal is for t-shirt shops where people get their news from. The idiocracy is people like, oh, I'm going to go to the t-shirt shop to learn the news. But I think there's lots possible. It's this kind of like creative machine that's fun to be inside and kind of fun to see where it goes. And I'm almost along for the ride with everybody else. I just have to personally guarantee all the debt. Oh.
No pressure. Well, Mike, I appreciate you taking time. We'll have you stick around. We're going to play a game here for a few minutes before break called One Word. And so it's kind of where the folks write on a dry erase board. And so we're going to take a second to set up, but let's have a round of applause for Mike. So the idea behind this will be pretty simple. And as they're setting up, I'll kind of talk a little bit about it. We don't rehearse these things, but the idea here is to hit more topics than we have in the past. And so we've had feedback. I think a few folks maybe did a survey. And so we're going to do this. We're going to have each of our panelists, and we're going to have Mike get a dry erase board, and we're going to have them react. My script just disappeared, so I'm going to grab that. But we are going to ask them to respond with one word. And so we'll see what they come up with, and we'll ask those to elaborate on the ones we like. Joining us tonight, it's our traditional panel. So we have opinion editor and columnist Todd Dorman, columnist Althea Cole, as well as our deputy Des Moines bureau chief, Tom Barton, and joining for this game up to the break is Mike Draper. And so we'll see. Mike, I didn't tell you this ahead of time, but they got the questions, so they have a little bit of an advantage. You're reacting live. They saw these just so that we didn't put too much pressure. Yep. Yeah, we're going to have you draw. No. So folks, why don't we start out with one word that describes your reaction? We've already hit on this topic a few times, to Senator Ernst's sarcastic apology after her comment on Medicaid cuts. The posting that she made to her Instagram the day after the town hall got national attention. So we'll have you write. Todd, you got to come up with one word. Pressure. The deadline is approached. Okay, we'll just have you guys hold up your answers. Go ahead. Tom, you have cringe. Althea, you have gift. And Mike, you have wow. And Todd, I'm not sure what the hell that says. Surprise? So Althea, you said gift. Tell us more.
It's
It is
it's on.
on.
It's on. Well, I mean, it was a gift to Democrats. Like, it's okay to take that and run with it. I mean, I would do the exact same thing if a Democrat had said that. I would have so much fun with it. And I mean, it's all right to admit that you've made a lot of money on it. I hope you have. In all fairness, I'm a capitalist.
All right. So we'll move on from that one. A word that describes the most recently completed legislative session. If you could take all that Golden Dome goodness and put it in a word, what would it be? Well, this one, Tom, yours isn't a surprise. All right. I think folks are almost done. So 3, 2, 1, and if you need a few seconds, but reveal. Tom, you said exhausting. Mike has dud, Todd crap, and Althea done. So, Mike, I'll let you expound.
Yeah, I mean, by the end of it, you realize they weren't even kind of hanging together. It wasn't organized in any way. And you kind of see that with the eminent domain stuff and threaten a veto. And this is kind of the first open rift between Reynolds and some of the other Republicans. So I don't know what they're going to do next year in the election year, but even less of what they did this year.
So, Tom, what does it feel like to work a 21-hour day? 22-hour day, not that you were counting.
Not
but,
that I was counting.
Yes. Hit the button.
We good?
We are.
Sweet. You get squirrely, and not just reporters, but lawmakers too. In the Senate, and now I'm blanking on the senator's name, but anyway, in the Senate, you had somebody bust out the guitar and give a little performance.
Really?
Was it Jeff Rowley? Dave Rowley, excuse me.
How many
Man,
stars would you give that performance?
I'm gonna have to talk to Aaron Murphy about that. Aaron was in the Senate. I was in the House, where I was being entertained by David Young, who did a tight 10. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with State Representative David Young, but he's hilarious. He's a funny guy.
Also
And,
from Van Meter.
that?
He's also from Van Meter. So
Yes, he is.
he and
yeah.
my parents live near each other.
Yeah. So we at on the press bench in the House were being entertained by David Young, who was cracking jokes about other lawmakers.
I guess that shortens that lag time or that remaining time, the longer those go on. Okay. One word when you learn that Christina Bohannon announced her third challenge of Marionette Miller Meeks. I like that you guys are erasing and redrawing. Like, this might be a guide into journalists' minds of perfectionism tendencies here, but all right. Ready? Let's turn them around. So we have, yes. Oh, Althea, yep, again. And then rerun, or what? Rerun, okay. All right, Todd, microphone too, sorry. But, all right, so one word on Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds' decision to veto the bill on eminent domain, pipelines, and property rights. That one's probably hard for one word. You can do two, but Althea said it has to have a dash. Yes, a hyphen, yes. Hyphenated words count as one. All right, we ready? 3, 2, 1. All right. Mike has future job. Althea has fight. Todd has corn. And internecine warfare. Okay, Tom, you're going to have to explain.
All right, I can't take credit for this. The credit for this goes to Kay Henderson, who's the host of Iowa Press and Iowa PBS. They had a reporters roundtable last week where they talked about it. But anyway, so internecine warfare, it means conflict within, right? Conflict within groups, conflict within factions, excuse me. And so I chose that because of the kind of fast and fierce response that you saw from House Republicans to the governor's veto. Almost immediately, House Speaker Pat Grassley called for a special session. And then you had State Representative Bobby Kaufman, who's the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, saying that, he pledged that he is going to kill every one of Governor Reynolds' bills next session, that he personally, as chair of the House Tax Policy Committee, is going to do everything he can to essentially block the governor's agenda and block any of her bills next session because of her veto of that.
All right, we'll go into that one after the break. I know it's on the list of questions. For me, there's bad news this week on the decision by Kraft Heinz and General Mills cutting out the artificial dyes in products like Kool-Aid, Jell-O, Trix, and Lucky Charms, basically every food that I ate as a child. So I'm curious if you could give me one word on that decision. You did. It's all good. It'll be all on delivery, Tom. So you better get that mic and be ready to deliver that one. All right, we ready? 3, 2, 1.5. 1, Mike, that is a long word. There must be lots of hyphens. All right, turn them around. Let's see. Okay. Yes, nice. We're all going to die. Althea, what do you have? MAHA? An acronym is a word. And Tom, I'd like you to deliver this one. Expound.
This is going to be terrible. So we all know the Kool-Aid Man, right? Oh yeah. Oh no. What is the Kool-Aid Man going to be now if he's not, that neon red or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know what color. Will he be brown? What color will the Kool-Aid? What color is a natural Kool-Aid Man?
But if he goes clear, he's going to have like superpowers to hide. So
Well, I-
into that Avenger
yeah,
stuff.
There will just be a hole in the wall and an invisible picture.
The nice thing about mine is that it means a lot of different things to Robert Kennedy Jr. So, MAHA, I think that's kind of a MAHA word, die.
We'll give you some A1 on your report writing there. All right. So journalists aren't necessarily wealthy. So Mike, we're going to have some pandering here. And it's going to be one shirt slogan that you think RAYGUN should make. And Mike, you get to do whatever the hell you want because you own the store. But so you could just give us one you're working on, or
Do we get royalties from this?
you got to ask that end of the table. I don't think Mike does royalties. All right. No worries, Althea. We needed, I should have had the Jeopardy song going, but we probably have to pay them royalties. All right. Well, Althea, you keep working as the others reveal theirs and start talking about them.
This
Mike,
one's kind of edgy. We're going to break though, so if anybody has a problem with this, they can. I'll be at the back. They can talk to me about it. But this is actually from our worksheet, so it's not really a word. It's one word, I guess, but it's all letters. Just ICEGTFO.
Nice. Mike, I'd like to congratulate you on getting through an entire segment of this show without dropping one F-bomb. So, congratulations. I should have brought a trophy for that. All right, Tom, what do you have?
Oh. Show me your full grassland.
We'll have to be in HR to work through that one. All right. All right. Althea, you ready? What do you have? Well, we have to do the microphone to explain.
If you're mad at me for this, just remember it's not nice to beat up a lady.
Oh, ouch.
That one.
Hey, I thought it was good.
I think the truth hurts. I am kind of like, yeah, man, that might be.
Yep. No. It's so. Todd, what did you come up with?
This is the, oops,
It's on.
it's on, okay. This is the dead zone starts here, and you'll notice down here, I tried to draw a shrimp, but it didn't work out too well because that's eventually what gets harmed is the shrimp, of course.
Actually, Todd, I thought of you earlier, and my backup one was Iowa. Enjoy our water now with 20% more nitrates.
I think it's fortified with nitrates.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it is time to take a quick break. So if folks want to refresh their beer, let's have a round for Mike Draper and for the panel, and we'll be back in about 7 minutes. Thanks, everybody. All right, well, welcome back. Hopefully everybody's refreshed. We are ready to go. So tonight we're going to try and enact a new rule where we spend 3 minutes on each question. And so I will have a timer up here that I am setting. And so that we stick to each question for 3 minutes. And the idea is we'll spend 15 minutes on national and then 15 minutes on state and local. And keep things going swiftly. So panelists, if you want to, we're going to go that pardon the interruption style. Pardon the interruption style. Thank you, Althea. I thought I was loud, but I'm louder now. So, all right. Well, we will go ahead and get going with our first question. And I wanted to start with the No Kings protest that happened last weekend. And so there were an estimated 5 million people turned out in 2,100 communities across the country, including Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, and a variety of communities around Iowa. Now the organizers said this week that another day of action is planned next month under the name Good Trouble Lives On. Do you think the energy around this movement can continue long enough to generate an election lift? And is there political risk if the events aren't peaceful?
There it goes. Well, there's a risk if the protests or the gatherings turn violent in any way. I suppose that's one risk. But I mean, these folks are organizing. They're firing people up. They're taking names, building databases. I mean, this is the stuff that you do with a movement like this. Is you try to leverage it next year with the midterms into something that can affect that election. Whether it does or not, I don't know. But I mean, that's when you're out of power and you don't have control of the levers. You got to kind of go to the people and try to organize them.
Todd, Althea, or Tom or Althea?
All right, is this thing on?
Yes.
Okay, it's on. As far as the No Kings protest goes, I always say have your fun, because I mean that's what protesting is. The more peaceful it is, the more it is just about, making a sign and waving it. And I don't want to sound like I'm raining on the parade, because I mean, conservatives make signs and they wave them too, and nobody likes it when things get out of hand. But the only thing I would maybe point out about the No Kings protest is that, regardless of how many people turn out on a Saturday when you've been planning for months and months and months, and you're doing it for Trump's birthday and on the same day as the military parade. Okay, that's one thing, but like I've already seen an advertisement for another another rally on July 17th, and I imagine it'll be only a matter of time before they start announcing Iowa locations for that one. And it's just like it gets to a point where you're like, again, like what's the significance of this one that they haven't already covered? And so I think whether or not people mean for it to happen, it just becomes kind of, oh, that's nice, have fun, see you later.
Well, your options are kind of limited when, like I say, people you don't agree with are in power and don't listen to you. So you're left with, you're left with few options sort of to register your opposition. So it's summer, nice weather. I'm sure they'll get decent crowds. But yeah, it's one mechanism they can use, one way they can register their displeasure, and so they're hit the street.
I will say that ever since the retired boomers started making signs and having rallies, I've gotten less hate mail. So they are clearly doing something different with their time, and I'm okay with that.
All right, next topic. Immigration and immigration raids. We've seen a lot of footage about that, and immigration policy has been a key piece of Trump's messaging. But we've seen conflicting messaging in this past week where we saw the message that there wouldn't be enforcement, that the federal government would pause enforcement at farms, hotels, and restaurants. Then the president said that they would target Democratic cities. But then a day later, we saw the enforcement at agriculture, hotels, and restaurants is back on. What do you make of this conflicting messaging? And what do you think? I mean, is there an economic impact to this for Iowans?
Well, what I'm going to make, I guess, is my bed at the hotel, because there won't be anybody to do it. I won't get turned down service, for God's sakes. What am I going to do? I mean, these are important jobs, and without employees, without workers, I mean, in Iowa, we already have a worker shortage. And if we lose farm workers and hospitality workers and all these folks that haven't committed any crimes, I mean, should at least have due process to try to, make themselves at least, have some sort of legal standing. I mean, we're going to deport people, but we don't have to, come into the hotel and just round them all up and put them in a van and drive away. I mean, I don't think that's how it's supposed to work. I think a lot of Americans have decided that's not how it's supposed to work. So you're hurting the economy and you're making the country look sort of cruel. So I'm not sure that's good policy.
I mean, as Todd mentioned, I mean, I don't think that there's a way to avoid a financial impact on Iowa just because of how much Iowa's agricultural industry relies on immigrant and migrant workers. And so, I think the Trump administration, was getting a lot of pushback from Iowa farmers, from the agricultural sector, from probably more importantly, hoteliers, people in the hospitality industry that Trump probably has, more connections with, and, kind of the back and forth and the mixed messaging and, walking that back. I mean, I guess to me, I took that as a sign of kind of maybe bowing to increasing pressure from the right, from Stephen Miller, from other elements of, kind of the MAGA movement, who would argue that entering the country illegally, you're breaking a law, you're breaking a crime there, and that there needs to be accountability and a crackdown.
All right, Althea, if you want to, I'll give you 30 seconds since we're experimenting with this new
Oh,
format.
thank you very much. I think another piece of mixed messaging is coming from Democrats, coming from the left, in terms of what kind of immigration enforcement they actually do want. We know that immigrants are people too, and what that means, unfortunately, because people can do bad things, it means that immigrants can do bad things too. And when we say, ICE go home, ICE get out of here, okay, does that mean that you don't want immigration enforcement at all? That comes to the point where we have to, we have to reconsider the awkward fact that Donald Trump was elected president for a reason. Voters chose him for a reason. And one of those reasons was because there was a massive, massive surge of illegal immigration at the border during the previous 4 years. And unfortunately, some pretty bad people came across the border who committed crimes before and weren't eligible, who, are at risk of committing crimes, who have committed crimes in the United States. So if the message is that we don't want any immigration enforcement at all, okay, but that's when we kind of get into the understanding of maybe why people chose Donald Trump in the 2024 election. And if that's going to be ignored again, well, we'll see what happens in 2028.
Well, I'll be more okay with this when we see a meat packing plant owner being grabbed off the sidewalk and sent to jail because he hires these folks and encourages them to come and work. So that's the other side of the equation that the Trump administration really doesn't say a lot about.
The question I would ask then is not to anybody else, but to myself. What do I know about every individual circumstance, or the circumstances of every individual person who was arrested? Again, immigrants are people, but people can do bad things. What's to say? Oh.
All right, let's be respectful, everybody. I want to jump to another topic. And so the Senate this week released the details on its version of the big, beautiful bill. And those potential changes are likely to set up a clash with what we've seen come out of the House. And so obviously the mechanism called the bird bath is likely to remove some pieces of the Senate's plan. But how do you see this playing out in the weeks ahead? And do you think July 4th, which has been that supposed deadline, is realistic at this point?
I guess right now it's hard for me to say how it's going to play out, but I mean, I don't know that the July 4th deadline is going to be realistic when you're seeing clashes between House and Senate Republicans. There is a segment of Senate Republicans who want steeper cuts to be able to, offset more of the tax cuts that are included in there. They've rolled out proposals, and as you mentioned, they rolled out legislation earlier this week that's calling for steeper cuts to Medicaid. Obviously that's not going to sit well with more moderate members of the House and Senate Republican caucus, and is probably not going to sit well with House Republicans and House leadership. And so, you're seeing some back and forth negotiations going on about how to maybe walk back some of those more steeper Medicaid cuts, but at the same time, find savings within the budget to, again, address concerns of Senate Republicans about the bill adding to the national deficit, adding to the national debt, and how can we bring that number down?
All right, either Todd, Althea, you want to jump in? All right, we will go to the next one. Last weekend, we saw horrific events unfold in Minnesota as authorities searched for 57-year-old Vance Bolter, who's accused in the fatal shootings of a Minnesota lawmaker and her husband, and the shooting of another lawmaker. The incident has raised discussions around the need to boost security around lawmakers. When it comes to Iowa lawmakers and state elected officials, what level of security do you see around them today? And what are you hearing about the idea of boosting it around members here?
Security-wise, there's troopers and security guards at the entrances to the Capitol. I don't believe there's any additional security for lawmakers when they're outside of the Capitol. I don't know if it, I don't know if any of you heard the interview. I think it was on NPR about listen while you can. It's about with the the Minnesota House was split, and Melissa Boltman, I think is her name,
Mhm.
Portman, was the speaker. But when they tied, they worked out a deal where she stepped down as speaker, and the Republicans got to have the speaker. And she and this Republican speaker would meet weekly. They had a good working relationship, and Representative Portman just made this arduous decision within days ago to provide the one necessary vote to pass a budget that she didn't like, Democrats didn't like, but she knew that, a budget had to get done. So she was willing to do something very difficult for the good of her state. And so that's the person that got murdered. And I mean, it's sad no matter what, but here's a high quality lawmaker and human being that some guy just decided to, kill in her, just inside her door. I mean, there's a lot of talk about incivility and political violence and rhetoric feeding it. And I do think to a certain extent, when you demonize your opponents, you make them appear less human, and you make killing them appear, seem less of a big deal. But I mean, this is a tragedy beyond what I think we've ever seen with in the state legislatures. And I really don't know what you do about it when the compromisers also get assassinated. I don't know where we go.
I talked to Iowa Senate Democratic leader Janice Weiner from Iowa City, and she said that she's reached out to the Department of Public Safety and is hoping to schedule a meeting in the coming days or weeks with the Iowa Public Safety Commissioner just to make sure that they have the proper safety procedures in place at the Iowa Capitol and for lawmakers. As Todd mentioned, outside of the Iowa Capitol, there is no security provided for state lawmakers. Governor Reynolds has a security detachment, provided by the Iowa State Patrol. You may see that potentially increase here in the near future going forward. I don't know that for sure. But the other thing is that you could potentially see state lawmakers become less accessible to their constituents and less visible in public. You could see lawmakers decide to, skip more public events out of concerns for their safety, concerns for the safety of their children, lawmakers, politicians who are running for reelection, oftentimes will bring their family with them, will bring their children with them. You may not see that happen now. You may not see them with, their children. They may not bring their spouse out of concerns for their safety, and they may skip out on, public forums. I hope not. I hope that's not what we see, but I think that's a legitimate concern in the wake of what we saw in Minnesota.
Our legislature is unique in that other than, committee chairs and leadership, they don't have offices. They work from the floor of the legislature. You can walk in and see legislators sitting at their desks. Years ago, there was a plan to it was very expensive, to dig up the back parking lot and build like an underground office complex at one point. And it didn't fly, but I kind of wonder whether there will be, discussions again. Should lawmakers have their own private space that's not accessible to the public, which I think would be unfortunate.
All right. I wanted to ask one audience question. So looking forward to the post-Trump era, do the panelists think that Republicans will regain compassion for fellow human beings, or are we past that? So I don't know. What's that? You don't want to ask that? Okay. All right. Well, the question was, will there be more compassion for fellow human beings in a post-Trump era? All right. Well, let's jump to state issues. And so same rules of the game. We'll try and focus on 3 minutes. And so there was speculation. U.S. Senator Joni Ernst said she doesn't regret the comments after an Iowa town hall, but we've seen reporting this week from the Wall Street Journal where folks are questioning whether she'll run because of the fallout from that town hall. What do you make of those comments? Is that just chatter at this point, or do you think that the Instagram response was not something that you can come back from?
I think at this point it's just chatter. I mean, you don't go through the process of hiring a campaign manager and raising money and, you know, putting in an organization where, you know, clearly it seems like she is making moves, right, to put together an organization to run again, to seek another term. And I don't think you go through the process of hiring staff, hiring a campaign manager, putting that together just to walk back. I mean, I hate to say it, but voters have short attention spans and memories, right? Is this something that we're going to be talking about more than a year from now, right? Obviously, her challengers, you know, Democrats that are running against her are not going to let this die. You know, they will pull that clip out ad nauseum and run attack ads on it. But again, there's a long time between now and the election. And is this really something that we are still going to be talking about between now and then? Other things are going to pop up. You know, other issues will rise to the surface, and, you know, months from now we'll have, you know, largely forgotten about it, and something else will have happened. Donald Trump will have done something to rile and piss people off, that will consume, right, the headlines and the talking pundits, and, you know, will get us riled up. And I think this will have fallen by the wayside, and I don't necessarily know that it's going to be a huge political liability for Joni Ernst going forward, to where you're going to say it's not worth running again, especially with the slim majorities that we're seeing in the House and the Senate. I think that there's too much interest in having, you know, a Republican incumbent run, as opposed to creating a open seat that now is going to be a toss-up.
Yeah, she's gonna run, and she's still favored to win. I mean, we've seen a lot of instances over the years where, you know, you'll poll voters and they'll say, yeah, we really don't like what she said. We disagree with cutting Medicaid. And then they just go into the polls and vote for her because she's on the right team. And so sometimes it doesn't matter what they do on a policy issue. It's more along lines of, you know, this is my team, this is team of my friends, social connections, all those things sort of count now more than policy, at least for Republicans, it seems. But really the damage for Republicans isn't really just Ernst. I mean, this was one of those moments that sort of crystallized the idea that's been, you know, argued by Democrats, that it's cruel and callous to cut Medicaid to pay for tax cuts that primarily benefit very wealthy people. So the "we're all going to die" is a good shorthand for that, and it's being used in races across the country. So will it matter next year? I have no idea. It depends on how long it takes them to pass a budget. I don't think they're going to get done by July 4th. But I mean, you know, and also traditionally the party in the White House doesn't do so hot in the midterms. So, you know, the Democrats may have an advantage, and so this could hurt her along the margins. But I still don't think, I know we've gone from solid red to lean Republican, which is huge. It's not. But I think it's still Joni's race to lose.
So I wanted to jump gears also. So we talked about this in the last segment. Governor Reynolds vetoed the bill which deals with eminent domain, carbon capture pipelines, and infrastructure. Obviously, the landowners have come out quite angrily, but we also saw an intra-party kind of rift come out where you know, we saw Representative Kaufman say that he's going to, Tom, as you mentioned, go against any of the bills that are on the governor's agenda. Is that bluster at this point and hurt feelings? What do you make of this intra-party kind of divide? And what does that tee up for next session?
I mean, if Bobby Kaufman is serious about that, you know, if you thought this last legislative session was interesting, just you wait. I mean, I don't want to say that Kaufman is a total blowhard, but you know, he does have his moments where if he's, you know, got kind of a bug about something, he's going to say it. And I think a lot of us are that way. So I have a hard time faulting the guy. I remember right after the 2016 election, when protesters were blocking Interstate 80 just north of Iowa City in Coralville. He went on the national news circuit, I should say the cable news circuit, maybe not even that, with his whole "suck it up, Buttercup" bill. And I mean, you know, in all fairness, we have had some back the blue legislation that is similar to what he was intending, but you know, not to the point where he, at that time, made his rounds on cable news and talked about "suck it up, Buttercup." So, you know, hopefully this is one of those blowhard things again, you know, God bless the Kaufmans, but it would be not very politically advantageous for Bobby Kaufman to do what what he said he was going to do and make it difficult or impossible for any bill that Reynolds wants to see passed to actually get passed. That would definitely not be good. That would cause a lot of inter-party strife. I think one of the things I find most interesting about it is that, you know, the name Kaufman carries a lot of weight in the Republican Party because his dad, Jeff Kaufman, is the state party chair, who is well-liked, well-respected, not just in the state of Iowa, but around the country, in Republican and Democratic circles alike. So you've got Kaufman, a big power name. You've got Reynolds. Kaufman's and Grassley's are also really tight. And you've got Speaker of the House, young Grassley, as I call him, Pat Grassley. So a lot of big names here that are on opposite sides of the fence. Yeah, it's interesting, but I mean, I don't think it's going to result in Bobby Kaufman stopping every bill that Reynolds wants to see passed.
Are you suggesting that the sucked Buttercup is now on the other foot? You think Bobby needs to suck it up, Buttercup? Maybe. I mean, you just don't call the governor and Aaron the girl for press that are, I mean, that's like those quotes. I'm just like, wow. I had no idea this.
He went scorched earth.
I had no idea this veto would be that fun.
You should write a Wednesday column about how now the "suck it up, Buttercup" is on the other foot. Come on, would you not want to see that?
That's hard to do. Gotta have the right size.
All right, in the time that we have now, we're getting in the time that we have remaining, we're getting a clearer picture now. We've seen a lot of different announcements for folks that are running or intend to run for office. Obviously, they can't yet file. But what races are you seeing shape up, and are there folks that maybe haven't jumped in that you're waiting on, or you think may shake things up?
Well, I guess, at the top of the ticket, the race that we're still waiting to see shape up, is the governor's race. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Randy Feenstra is going to run. He's, announced an exploratory committee, but I mean, you don't start putting out statewide TV ads if you're just exploring, right? So the fact that he's put out 2 ads now, he's raised a lot of money. He also his exploratory campaign put out a poll. I mean, you don't do those things unless you're actually going to run for governor, right? So I think it's pretty clear that Randy Feenstra is going to run. The big name that we're waiting to see what they're going to do, if they're going to enter the race or not, is Republican Attorney General Brenna Byrd, who is close to Trump. The big question is, what does the president do? Does he endorse? Does he endorse in the primary? And so if Brenna Byrd enters and gets Trump's endorsement, I don't think that it clears the field, but I think that it definitely, for lack of a better term, handicaps the race, right? It gives her a huge advantage going into the Republican primary. And, as a result, some people may drop out, others may decide not to run who maybe are considering and are, exploring whether to run. I don't think, again, that it clears the field, but it definitely shakes up the dynamics of that race considerably. Um, and then, with the expectation that Randy Feenstra is going to run for governor, I think, we're waiting to see who jumps in for his congressional seat. State Senator Lynn Evans has says that he is exploring a run, that he's looking at potentially running for that Western Iowa U.S. House seat. We don't have a Democrat, Ryan Melton, who was running, just suspended his campaign and pulled out. There's a question, will Democrats field somebody in that race or not? Does it make sense for him to run in, that solidly Republican district? There's an argument that, Democrats need somebody to run to help, essentially control the margins for statewide races. Not necessarily the most compelling argument to make to somebody to get into a race, but
I'm just enjoying all the swearing for the most part. I mean, you got candidates that are using the swears more often. It's a trend, I suppose. They're trying to pick up on some MAGA energy. Nathan Sage, I think soon he's going to say all of the words that you can't say on the radio. Maybe. And
Which city do you think he'll pick as the campaign stop to do that?
what?
Which city do you think he'll pick as the town to do that in?
So probably, maybe Northwest Iowa. Well, they might not appreciate it, but I think J.D. Schulten's got a real expletive upside. I mean, he's played baseball. He is playing baseball. He's actually on the Explorers this year. He's like on the team, not just emergency starting, which is crazy. But other than that, I don't know if I can see Zack Walls swearing too much or any of the other candidates, but I'm looking for that. I think this is nothing changes in politics, I guess, but this is a new wrinkle. And what will the state's newspapers do with these quotes? I mean, that's another mystery.
I think the asterisk is going to get a workout. Maybe we'll have to have a style debate between that and the hyphen. So, Althea, any thoughts on the mix-up races? Anything you're watching for?
I would be less concerned with any, bad language that Zack Walls would use, and more concerned if somebody were to try to convince him to do another Reddit thread where he talks about his pornography watching habits. So hopefully the race doesn't devolve into that again.
All right. Well, that is an unusual note to leave it on, but we have reached 7:30. That's why we don't rehearse these things that happen live. So we have reached the end of tonight. Thanks again to the panel, to the Cedar Rapids Area Association of Realtors, to special guest Mike Draper, to Star Entertainment, and to the Olympic. Our next event with Pints Politics is August 21st. It's right back here in the Olympic. Our planned guest that night is Rob Sand, and so we hope you'll join us. So that is it. Thank you all for coming tonight, and we will see you in August.